The Season 2 finale of House of the Dragon, titled The Queen Who Ever Was released a short time ago. In this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 most compelling costumes, highlighting any callbacks to Season 1 and Game of Thrones. While I appreciated the brighter tone of the premiere, which allowed us to see the costumes in all their glory, the season has gradually become darker. So as a result, I've had to brighten all the still images from HBO and screen grabs from the episode to ensure you can see the intricate details. Now, warning, there will be spoilers for all of Seasons 1 and 2, but I won't touch on any Fire and Blood spoilers, so please refrain from leaving those in the comments below. Thank you. Before diving into the countdown, I wanted to share a few thoughts on the season, though I'll do a more comprehensive review after I've had a chance to rewatch it. If you've been following my costume reviews for Season 2, you know there was a change in costume design this season with the addition of costume designer Caroline McCall. Overall, I've noticed an improvement in the quality of the costumes from Season 1. Whether that's due to the impact of COVID, I can't say for sure. I can only judge from what's on the screen. The costumes in Season 2 fit the actors better, with more attention to tailoring, and the quality of the fabrics has noticeably improved. There's an incredible level of detail in the dyeing and breakdown of the costumes, and as I've mentioned before, the craftsmanship is astonishing, particularly in the leatherwork, appliques, trim, beading, and most notably, embroidery. Additionally, the armors are just incredible. However, while I've enjoyed many of the callbacks to Game of Thrones, I think they've sometimes been a bit heavy-handed. Many of you know how much I adore Michelle Clapton's designs from Game of Thrones, even if I didn't always agree with the direction in the later seasons. Clapton created an immersive and believable world. So given that House of the Dragon is set about 170 years before the events of Game of Thrones, I would have liked to have seen more original designs. Even if I didn't love every costume in Game of Thrones, I could always appreciate how Clapton constantly challenged herself, drawing inspiration from runways and distant lands to create a magical world. For me, the Season 2 designs felt a bit safe. But I won't spend too much time on this to keep the video concise, but I'll add some additional comments as we go along. In this video, I'm focusing on costumes that not only stand out visually, but also contribute to the storytelling and narrative. Number 10, Sir Criston Cole Gambison. As Criston delivers his Shakespearean soliloquy, I noticed he's dressed in a new gambeson, which I've placed at the bottom of my list, but I still felt it was important to mention. Throughout the 2 seasons, Criston has mostly been seen in his Kingsguard or White Cloak armor, usually paired with a tunic underneath. I was never a fan of that look. I always felt it offered little in the way of protection. As I've mentioned before, a gambeson is meant to provide an additional layer of defense, and the tunic had these oddly placed grommets that I speculated might have been for ventilation. The design team maintained this look until the final episode, where they introduced the new gambeson during Criston's melancholy lament. Now, it's possible that the costume designer didn't have the resources or budget to implement this change across all the Kingsguard members, but perhaps we'll see an update in the next season. After all, there should be a shift in uniform under their new king Aegon. And speaking of the White Cloaks, I'm also hoping we'll see a redesign of Queen Rhaenyra's Queensguard armor next season, reflecting the Black faction's allegiance. Number 9, Aegon Nightshirt. Aegon's burns have healed well enough that he can now wear cloth against his skin without it sticking. I've included his costume on this list because, although it's just a nightshirt, it's absolutely gorgeous. The soft green color is complemented by incredible details on the collar and along the sleeves. His father Viserys also wore an equally beautiful nightshirt on his deathbed. Sometimes it's the simplest things that leave the greatest impact. Number 8, Rhaenyra's riding dress and cape. You might wonder why I've placed this costume so low on the list. So it's not that it isn't beautifully tailored or embellished. It is, but it just doesn't work for me. There is too much sameness, and it feels more like a direct copy of Daenerys Targaryen's iconic Dragonstone costume rather than being inspired by her character. The resemblance is almost identical. Additionally, the costume looks somewhat bulky on Emma Darcy's slight frame, with the undertunic and tabard adding unnecessary volume. I really loved her red riding leathers from the beginning of the season, and I think a variation of that would have been a more fitting choice for her rival on Syrax. I'm a bit concerned about the direction the showrunners and the design team might take in future seasons. Rhaenyra deserves better. Number 7, Alicent traveling clothes. Like Rhaenyra's costume, you might wonder why this one is on the bottom half of the list. Honestly, I think it's absolutely beautiful and looks stunning on Olivia Cooke. However, similar to her camping outfit from the previous episode, it veers into fairy tale or Disney princess territory in my opinion. The costume itself is exquisite, featuring a brocade undergown and a hooded overcloak with a floral motif and matching floral appliques. There is one exterior scene, possibly when she's waiting for an Uber ride, where she stands on Dragonstone watching the gorgeous sunrise and the outfit looks magical. Now let's talk about the color, which I find problematic. Throughout the latter part of the Season 1 and into Season 2, Alicent has consistently worn various shades of green: emerald, bottle green, sage, teal, cyan, and the like. In the last episode, her costume began shifting toward blue hues, though you could argue about the exact color, but it still stayed within the blue-green palette. So, when she arrives at Rhaenyra's doorstep in Wedgwood blue, it feels thematically like she's abandoned Team Green, which is certainly how it comes across. But if that's the direction the design team is heading, I don't think this shade of blue is the right choice. This particular shade is traditionally reserved for the ingenue, so it made perfect sense for Alicent to wear it back in Season 1 when she was a young, sweet girl. It provided a nice contrast to the golden yellow worn by teenage Rhaenyra. But now, as a dowager queen, this color doesn't work for me at all. Additionally, since Rhaenyra's costume is a silvery blue-gray palette, there isn't enough contrast between them during their conversation in the dimly lit interiors of Dragonstone. The Dragon Riders. Next up on the list, I have the Dragon Riders in no particular order, beginning with number 6, Ulf. Since Ulf only had one outfit all season, it's a refreshing change to see him cleaned up and dressed in a new set of clothes for his dinner with the Queen. Now, despite his behavior, reminiscent of a drunk uncle at Thanksgiving, he does make a striking impression in this costume. The silhouette, like many of the Team Black costumes we've seen in this season, is inspired by the Dragon Keepers and features a Japanese-influenced tunic that wraps left over right. The jacket appears to be crafted from a luxurious brocade in a gray-brown palette, though it's challenging to determine the exact color due to the dim lighting. The collar is edged with a delicate scallop-style border stitching, adding a subtle but elegant detail. Beneath the jacket, Ulf wears a simple shirt, likely made of cotton or linen, providing a clean, understated layer that complements the more ornate outerwear. While we don't get a full view of the complete costume before he mounts Silverwing, due to the way the scene is shot, it's clear that the ensemble includes a cloak fastened with a heavy Celtic-style dragon brooch. This finishing touch not only adds to the overall grandeur of the outfit, but also reinforces the character's connection to the Targaryen legacy and the lore of the Dragon Riders. Number 5, Hugh. Hugh's outfit aligns more with the traditional style of Westeros than with Rhaenyra's faction, suggesting he might have had a say in his clothing choices. His jacket resembles a long-line doublet, similar to those worn by the noblemen of Westeros, and like Ulf's costume, it features a brown and gray palette. The torso of his doublet has a diamond motif or quilting, and it laces up at the front, adding a touch of structure and detail. Before Hugh mounts Vermithor, he dons a coat of bronze plates, which I particularly love for its triple swirl dragon motif on each plate, all linked together with mail. In the wide shot, it also seems that he's wearing a gambeson beneath the armor, adding an extra layer of protection. Number 4, Adam of Hull. Adam is tasked with riding Sea Smoke for an offensive on behalf of Rhaenyra's faction. Like Ulf, he wears a Dragon Keeper-style jacket and undershirt. The jacket's fabric features a chevron texture reminiscent of the subtle dragon scale patterns often seen on Daenerys Targaryen's costumes in Game of Thrones. Of all the armor worn by the dragon riders, Adam's is the most intriguing to me because it closely resembles the Valyrian steel armor of Aegon the Conqueror, formerly worn by King Aegon. This raises the question, could it be from Old Valyria? While we're on the subject, you may have noticed that Adam's brother, Alan, is wearing Valyrian armor while traveling with Corlys's fleet. This armor is the same style as the one worn by Corlys's legitimate son, Rhaenyra Targaryen, back in Season 1. Hey, I want to take a moment to congratulate viewer Jeps1973, the lucky winner of a ring from Gentle Bands. You will be able to select a ring of your choice from the Gentle Bands Galactic Legends ring collection. We will be reaching out to you shortly. Number 3. Shirako Lohar Triarchy Ensemble. The world of House of the Dragon expands when Tylan ventures to Essos for a side quest to meet with the Triarchy. It's a refreshing change from the Westerosi costumes, allowing us to explore a new culture and its bold colors. While time constraints limit a full review, one standout is Admiral Shirako Lohar. In a behind-the-scenes video, Abigail Thorne, who plays Lohar, shared that they really listened to me and asked, "Do you have ideas for the character?" So I said, yeah, I'd love to take her in a dimension where she's like a female Blackbeard, covered in knives and various trinkets. Tim Lewis, the master armorer, added, "We created an ornate sword for her hip, along with 8 different knives. We worked closely with the costume department to determine where they would be positioned on the body." And then costume designer Caroline McCall noted, the design had to integrate all these elements. Lohar has a waistcoat adorned with trinkets, coins, and items she's pillaged. Unlike the more muted tones of Westeros, Lohar's costume features vibrant purples, blues, yellows, and reds. And while I haven't done extensive research, the inspiration seems to be Indo-Persian. For reference, here's an example of an embroidered waistcoat from the India Art Craft store on Etsy. This might be coincidental, but it's worth noting that Lohar's wig bears a strong resemblance to the one worn by Ed Skrein as Daario Naharis in Game of Thrones. And fans of the book will appreciate that Daario is described as dyeing his hair and beard, sometimes blue and other times deep purple, which aligns with the visual nod with one of the side characters featured in a blue wig and beard during the episode. I've loved all the night attire this season, which was also quite impressive last season, just as I noted with Viserys' nightshirt. While Rhaenyra's daytime outfits are very structured, with strong shoulders and stiffer fabrics, this peignoir ensemble offers a chance to see her in a more vulnerable light. In fact, during her surprise visit from Alicent, she frequently crosses her arms, highlighting her vulnerability. The color of Rhaenyra's peignoir is a blue-gray, similar to her nightwear from the episode Rhaenyra the Cruel. Made from what appears to be silk, it's soft and drapey, adding to its delicate appearance. One aspect I've particularly enjoyed this season is the fabric manipulation and intricate details, including the smocking. The bodice of the gown is beautifully gathered to create a smock detail at the high waist, with the extra fabric flowing gracefully into the skirt. While I'm not an expert on smocking, I found an example of the technique that closely resembles this design. This peignoir ensemble has easily become one of my favorite costumes of the season. Now, before we get to the most compelling costume of the episode, I have one honorable mention. Tylan Lannister long leather doublet and cloak. I think Tylan deserves an honorable mention for being a bit of a fish out of water during his meeting with the Triarchy to secure their support. His attire, while slightly different, closely resembles the leather doublet and cloak that his twin brother Jason wore during the hunt on baby Aegon's name day in Season 1. It's a beautifully crafted costume, but it's quite unsuitable for the hot climate. At one point, you can see him sweating profusely, which is partly due to the oppressive heat and partly because he's negotiating terms that he fears might cost him his life. And now, the most compelling costume in the episode. Number 1, Rhaenyra gown with dragon pauldrons. This costume was teased early on and for good reason. It's essentially a culmination of all her previous looks, featuring a scaly black fabric with a silhouette that maintains the essence of her other outfits. It includes strong shoulders adorned with beading, a tapered waist, a bell-shaped skirt, and a waist cincher. But the piece de resistance is the highly ornate set of dragon-themed shoulder pauldrons which nestle elegantly on her shoulders. I also appreciate that she's wearing her crown. If I'm not mistaken, she hasn't worn it since season 1. As the only female character to wear pauldrons, typically an armor piece for men, this immediately evokes memories of Queen Cersei Lannister's pauldrons from Game of Thrones. It's a powerful statement, and I'm hopeful we'll see Rhaenyra don some form of armor in the next season. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the costumes in the season finale or throughout the entire season. I want to thank everyone who's followed along with my Season 2 episode breakdowns of House of the Dragon and those who joined our weekly live streams. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.
Mm-hmm.